Hey guys, I'm Mr. Zamora, and welcome to your summer session for Biology 2 1407. So the goal of this video is to help you introduce you to the layout of the course. And I'm on the start page here, and I'm gonna do both my summer 1 and summer 2 sessions. So some of you all are enrolled in section VO2, and some of you are in V60, which is summer 3 session. And when you log into your course, you're going to be here on the start page here, and there's a picture of your books, and then my profile picture here. And in this first link here, it says click there for introductory videos. This video is going to be placed in there. Though I'll give you a link through probably an announcement when you first log in, so you can also find the link there. Right now, though, I do have one link in there. I used to have other videos in the folder, and I've removed them for now. I sent an email out to everybody that was on the roster, and so if you didn't receive the email, make sure you read this email. And so this is found in the same place for both classes. So you would go into that first folder to find it, and just click on it, and it'll open up the email, and it'll let you know what you need for the course. I was hoping everybody would get it last week. That way you got a head start on making sure you had all the materials you need, including your books. And when you go through the email, it'll tell you what's expected. This is an online course. There's one of the things I want you all to do is get on a remind messaging system. I've seen many of you on there already, and I've even communicated with some of you. The code is different depending on if you're in section VO2 or V60. I opened up the email that was for section VO2, so it's a different code. There's directions that are if you want, you can go online to remind.com, set up an account, and then download an app, and then there's directions there for doing it a slightly different way. In any case, I recommend that you download, if you have a smart device, download the app there, because it gives you more functionality. You can communicate with other people in the class that way. And for me, it's the best way to communicate with me, because I get the messages faster there than I do through email or any other. So if you want a quicker response, message through a remind. The second one, according to the email, is message through Blackboard messaging, and then third, as a last resort, email. But I get a lot of emails, and they're having to do with all kinds of other business, and I'd like to keep messages from you guys in a more focused spot. So remind, then Blackboard messages. So the preference again is remind. So please set yourself up an account. There's also the computer requirements for the course, and this is also on your syllabus. So I went ahead and just pasted some of the information off of your syllabus. You do need a laptop or a desktop with full access to the internet, and you're going to need a webcam, and you're going to be using a lockdown browser with a webcam for taking your quizzes and your tests for this course. There's information here for your textbooks. It's the same that you see both on Blackboard and on your syllabus. I have a supply list. I like my students, even in the home at home, to do a little bit of hands-on science. We're going to be doing a little plant growth experiment, and it takes inexpensive materials to do it. All you need is a ruler, a basic plastic ruler you can get for $1 or so. It's a foot in 12 inches or a 30 centimeter ruler. It's the same thing. For sure, make sure it has centimeters on there. Some zip type bags, like Ziploc plastic bags, quart size, at least 20 bags, so a box with at least 20 bags in there. And then some seeds of uncooked fresh beans, or any seed type that you can find in your garden center, like radish. Radish grow pretty fast. Radish seeds, so you might be able to find those there. And then either paper towels that are unprinted, without any print, because you're going to put the seeds on there as you experiment with them to grow. Or those brown coffee filters, the cone type, those work pretty good. I think the number the larger ones work even better because they fit more fully in there and give you more space to grow seeds on there. And then I have some other items here that might be useful to you, like study tips for um, how to study for biology courses, and even a time budget. If you are working full time, you might download the spreadsheet and then work on a time budget where you actually plan time to invest for this course. You will need to study outside of just covering the material for the first time. Typically, in a summer course, if it's a face-to-face course, you're getting 2 hours of lecture and 2 hours of lab every day, and that's when you cover it for the first time during the class environment. That still requires time outside of class, just like a normal semester would, to study the material. So you're going to have, you should budget time to cover the material once, and then budget time that you invest in learning the material, because covering it once for understanding is important, but then you also have to invest time to make sure you learn it so that you can reproduce that information and apply that information and so on. And so that requires interacting with the material. And if you're looking for some extra study tips, there are some links here that'll help you out that way. So those are useful things there, and those are on both emails. So again, this is on for both courses. They're set up the same way, so I'm just going to go back and forth to both. So from the Start Here page, then you can see your textbook information. It's the 12th edition textbook and lab manual. You won't be able to do any labs unless you have the lab manual. There's very few labs for biology 2, if any at all, that are online push and click stuff. So your lab manual is going to be your main guide, and I've had to put together a lot of materials that requires that you're using your lab manual as a guide, and then I have various materials that you'll look at that you access through the web. But the lab manual guides you through all of the things that you're going to be doing. So you do need that lab manual. If you don't have it, you're not going to be able to do the lab. So make sure you get those, the lab manual for sure. And then if you scroll down here, here's your course syllabus, and it's the same place in both pages. So you want to click on that to see what the course policies are. If you're in VO2, it'll say VO2 on top. V60 will say V60 on top. And there's one big difference. One is the summer 1 session. The other one is the summer 3. Summer 3 is 10 weeks long, whereas summer 1 is 5 weeks long. So if you're in VO2, things are going to go by very quickly. We're talking like covering chapter a day, a laboratory a day, whereas the summer 3 is 10 weeks, is going to be like 2 chapters every week and so on. Whatever the case is, this is an online class, and you have to make sure that that discipline is there, that you are going through and covering the material. I've taken an online course here and there. It's not my personal preference, but they work just fine when you don't have any other times, and I think they're actually a great opportunity. It's allowed me to get credits for things that I need. But there is a big difference that I noticed, is that I had to make sure that I budgeted and scheduled time to cover the material. This is especially true for those in the summer 1. Every day there's new things to cover, and eventually the summer session is over. So you need to keep up with the material, and then the regular quizzes that you're going to be getting. The syllabus gives my contact information. Here's my schedule. I'm going to be having office hours, and I'll be available through Blackboard Collaborate. I'll show you how to access that. And I'll be at the link that says office hours. So if you need to visit with me, you can click on there, and then you can more than one person can click on there at a time, and then I'll just pick you up one at a time, and we can go into a separate room on Collaborate if you wanted to discuss things in private, whether it's ask questions about the content, or discuss grades or the course, or whatever you want to do. That's what the office hours are for. Now, this is an online course. I am going to schedule times for discussing topics or covering things I think that are either challenging or important. But it's not the class. I'm going to be there doing this at this time, and I have twice the amount of time scheduled for VO2, because VO2 is only 5 weeks long. For section VO6, it's only twice a week, and one of the meetings is for lab and one is for lecture. There'll be 2 lab and 2 lecture times that I'll be doing. So the schedule is here. So if you want to join in, you just come in and I'll show you how to access that part of the class. It's going to be a different link for these virtual lab and virtual lectures. You can come on there and get involved in discussion. And then whatever I do cover during that time, I'll record it. So you can have access to it if you can't join during that time. So I'm always going to be available to you if you have a message sent on that remind system. I'll get back to you if I'm awake. If I'm asleep, then I'll wait till I see the message later. So keep in mind there's your schedule, and the schedule is the same on both syllabi for VO2 and VO3. Where they differ, all the policies are the same, but where they differ really is, by the way, if you're in V60, you won't have access to the VO2 virtual meetings and vice versa. This is just my schedule for the summer, so you have access to it regardless of what class you're on. So if you want to attend in your V60, look at the schedule. If you're in VO2, follow that schedule there. Where they differ here is in the tentative lecture and lab schedule. Again, I'm showing you for summer session 1, which is section VO2. Things are going to go by very quickly. You can see during the first week, we're covering part of chapter 23, all of chapter 25, 26, 27, 28. That's a lot of chapters to cover in 1 week. And then here's the lab schedule as well. If you go and you look at the schedule for summer 3, it's going to be more by week rather than by day. So it's more organized by weeks, and it's roughly about half the amount of material every week. So just follow that schedule, and really just follow what I have available to you every week in the content folder. But you can always go to the syllabus to see what's coming up in the future. So that's the course syllabus, and then both classes have the exact same thing here, where it says essential information. Here is a little biography of mine. I haven't written one in a long time, so it's kind of an older one. You can see that's my hand there. I'm a field biologist and or done field biology work in the past. That's my hand holding a little bird after capturing, banding, and then releasing it. There's information on our program objectives and the course objectives for this course. Same thing as on your syllabus. There's a bit of redundancy there. Here's a picture of the textbooks. Same information that's on the syllabus. And I think our bookstores are carrying them. If you can make it down to the bookstore, maybe you already have your books from 1406 class, and then there's a link where you can purchase them. Again, you do need the lab manual, and you can actually just, you don't need the actual hard copy of the books. You can buy, instead, there's options where you can just buy online access to these materials. It's like for a year and a half or so. Like 18 months or something like that. So that's in both classes you have that on the start page. So where's the real go-to place? There's other information on this page, and it's the same for a lot of our courses here at STC. So where do you go next? From there, you would go to course content, and you're going to do the same thing for regardless of what class you're in. So whether you're in VO2 or V60, and there you're going to see a list of the same things. You're going to see the first folder is your assignments folder. And your assignments folders are going to be what you're going to be covering to get through the material. I have suggested assignments that you do that will prepare you for your assessments. So I give regular quizzes and then eventually a test. And then there are a few things I'll ask you to turn in. But for the most part, it's start up a quiz, get it taken, and then you're done. Now, how do you prepare for them? Well, you do some of those assignments that I ask you to do, because those quizzes and those tests are going to be based on those assignments. So one difference here is if you're in VO2, these are daily assignments, and then they're going to be in subfolders by week. If you're in V60, there's just going to be links for each week. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you're in VO2, you click on here, and right now I only have summer 1 instructional days 1 through 5. Then there'll be another folder that'll do instructional days 6 through 10 and so on as I prepare those. But if you go on here, there's links for each day. So on Monday, which is today, you would be clicking on day 1, and then you'd go through that material. If you're in V60, there's by week here. So this would be week 1, and that's June 1 through June 5th. And when you do click on these, they're going to open a document. And both of them have the same setup. They start with a little contents menu. And for summer 1, every day there's lecture and lab every day. So you got to get through the lecture and through the lab for that first day there. So if you click on that first link, it'll take you to the lecture material. There's instructions there. There's some supplemental links, and some of the links include practice quizzes, animations, videos, and they're all supplemental, and really they're optional. And then there's a PowerPoint that I actually use for the video lectures. And then the same setup again is for summer 3, except the difference is going to be the pace at which you go through these things. So essentially, if you're in summer 3, you got to pace yourself to get through this document during this first week, right? If you're in summer 1, this document is for the first day. Then there's a document for the next day. Summer 3, then there's week 2 and week 3. So the point is that these documents, if you're in summer 2, you go through that document in 1 day. If you're in summer 3, you go through that document in 1 week. And so you've got to make sure that you're budgeting your time to cover this material. And this is covering it for the first time. So when I have lectures here, they're in chunks of information. The whole chapter would be covered, for example, or sometimes we go from one chapter to another in the middle of it. And then you get through it, and it's going to be as if it was a lecture thing. And there's not going to be more than 2 hours. Sometimes there's almost 2 hours worth of lecture videos. Sometimes there's just over an hour. It depends on how much material there is to cover that day. So you want to try to budget yourself just to get through these each day. So here it's by sections, so you would go one at a time. So there's your lecture video, and you would click on it. And it's the same for summer 2, except the difference is the time in which you do through it. And so there's your lecture video, and you can watch it. And it's actually the same. It's the video for the entire chapter, and there's a menu on the bottom, and you can go to each section directly from there. So you want to be careful, because if you're only going to be doing section 1 and you want to do them in chunks, you can do the whole chapter if you want all together. But if you do it in chunks, you would watch section 1 first, and then you can click on here and you can look at some questions regarding that section. There's a lot of questions. You don't have to do them all, but those questions are a good way to assess if you know the material or not. They would be the idea here would be trying to figure out if you can answer those without looking at materials. So it's a way of self-assessing overall. And then you always have these practice. They're up here at the link at the top. There's these pre and post test questions. They're multiple choice type from an older textbook. And both classes have them there. That's what the 10th edition used to look like. We're already on the 12th. There's a pre and there's a post one. And if you click on it, it's multiple choice. You know the answer to that. You want to make sure that you got more than just the answer, though. So be careful with these. It's a good way to try assess yourself multiple choice wise, though, overall. And then you can submit it, and it'll grade it for you, and it'll let you know how you did. And I'm also going to have quizzes at the end of every chapter that you can take at any time, but you want to get them done timely, because in the following week there's more every week, right? So when you finish with each section, like I said, if you click on that video, it'll go through section 1, and then it'll start section 2 right away. So when you see section 2 is about to start, you might stop the video at that point. You might close the window or just come back to it later, or you just continue and go through the whole lecture taking notes and breaks as needed. But you do need to interact with that material, so you need to take notes and then fill in the notes, do all of those strategies that are strategies for learning course material. And the study questions are just a tool for that. They're not going to be turned in, but if you can't answer some of those questions, you might not be able to answer some of the questions I give you on quizzes and tests. So those study questions are one option for preparing yourself for those assessments. So there's these sections here, and then here it says take lecture quiz on chapter 23, because we're only going to cover the first 3 sections. You're not covering the entire chapter. You don't have to take the quiz right away. It's just letting you know there is a quiz there for you after you finish that chapter. I would still try to study a little bit for the material, and then it's a quiz. It's practice. Quizzes count a little bit, and then eventually you get a big test. So on this day, if you're in section VO2, we're supposed to continue. This is still lecture. So you start the next chapter, section 1, there's your lecture video, and then section 2. When I was preparing these, I started putting the approximate times that each section runs in the lecture. And once you get to the end here, it's end of day 1 lecture. Okay. There's no notification here that says take this quiz, because we haven't finished chapter 25. The quizzes come when we finish the chapter. So on the next day, and the same kind of pattern is going to be followed again for V60. So you just follow your document, and it'll tell you what to do during that week. You're not going to take any quizzes until you finish the chapters. And so the quizzes will already be there ready to go. There's no deadline for them, but you don't want them to pile up on you. Because eventually a big test is going to come in, and then more material right following that test. And if you're not taking these timely, then you fall behind, and then I can't assess you for any kind of grade determinations. And then so when you finish there, you can always go back when you get to the bottom of the page to laboratory, or just continue scrolling down. And then here's your laboratory, and these are your instructions for the first lab. And then the things to do are linked there. So the instructions will tell you what to do, what you're being asked to do. And when you finish with these lab activities here, there's a video explanation for some things. Occasionally, a lot of times, it's just using your lab manual to help you get through the material, or other ancillary material that I've created. When you're done, I have a little exercise here on this first day. Again, you're just following this as a guide. This is day 1 for lab. There's a little activity that's going to get you looking ahead at the next lab, and it's a little a simulation of a type of staining technique we use for bacteria called the gram stain. When you click on it, it is going to ask you. Right now, mine is already set, but if it tells you need Flash Player at the top, then usually you go right here, and it'll click there, and it'll say I've already allowed it to allow. It's the default says to block it. They're starting to do away with this Flash Player, so it'll look more like this. It says Flash Player is needed. Now I've tried this both in Chrome and in the new Edge Explorer, and it's kind of the same thing. You come up to here and you click on there, and then in Edge you have to look at the settings. You have to go more to this where it says Site Settings. And in Chrome, it's right away right there. For the other one, go to your settings, and then wherever it says Flash, click to allow it. And then when you do, you'll have to reload it, and then it'll play for you. It's kind of a guided little activity where you actually have to point and click, and then do the aspects of the gram stain. It would be good to get that done before your next lab, which is if you're VO2, that's tomorrow. If you're in V60, that's still this week. It's not right away Tuesday. You just got to make sure you budget your time for the week to get through all of that material. And once you do all that, you're done for the day. And that's should be, as during a normal summer session, approximately 4 hours of instruction, 2 hours for lab, 2 hours for lecture. So no time can be afforded to be wasted during the summer session. You want to make sure you keep up with this material. For V60, it's more stretched out, right? So you figure out how you're going to get through that material during the week. That's the one thing about online, is making sure you get through that material. So now we go back from here. So that's where you go to. You go to your course content and your activities. I'm not sure why I timed out there. Okay, so we were there on the course content. So going back to course content, there's some other items in there. There's a folder for your tests and quizzes, and that's true in both. And that's where you're going to go to find your quizzes. So every week I'm going to be adding more quizzes to the folders, and then eventually when it's test time, there'll be tests put in there. The layout's going to be the same. There's 2 folders, one for quiz, one for exams. You want to keep track of the ones you've taken, and if you've already taken them, it'll let you know right away. You can't take this again because you can only take them once. You can only start them once. So don't start the quizzes or tests until you're ready and you have enough time in that part of your day to take them. So for the quizzes, there's going to be 2 folders, and right now both sections already have quizzes in there. These quizzes are going to require that you have lockdown browser, so that needs to be installed into your computer in order to start it. If you try to start it right now, it's going to ask for password and it just won't let you start. Okay. So there's already a quiz in there for lecture, and there's already one in there for lab. And so if I click on there, it's going to tell me to give me instructions. You have 17 minutes for this quiz. And if you try to begin, it's just not going to let you start. So you are, there was instructions on that email that I showed you earlier on how to use Lockdown Browser and how to download it. And I have it here on my computer. And you would have to start it up. And when you're on there, it may ask you to close some things, but when you get on there, you're going to go to Blackboard, and then you log in, and then go to the quiz, and then when you start it, it'll allow you to start. And it's going to be set up where you're supposed to be using your webcam, so it's going to do a webcam check and so on, and it's going to make sure that you're there. And just follow the directions before you get started. And as the semester progresses, I'll start taking off some of those instructions to allow you to get through starting the quiz faster. But they'll generally be set up the same way. The one feature I don't have is there's one feature that I removed to reduce some of that time. But you do need that lockdown browser in order to start the quizzes, so make sure you keep that in mind. Right now, so I'm going to start adding more quizzes. So once you take this, you've gotten that out of the way, and then you should be able to see your grade in Blackboard. These grades, all of these quizzes are graded on a 100-point scale, but I want to caution you guys about equating the traditional grade scale to this. I give my students a body of material, and I want to see how much and how deep you understand the material. So you're going to have different levels of questions, right? So you're going to have the basic recall questions, you're going to have more depth questions. In order to answer the more in-depth questions, you need to interact with that material. So I want to see how well you're mastering the material. It's a college level course. Try not to be thinking, I needed 90 to get an A. You don't need to make 90% to get an A. You just need to be showing that you're growing with your knowledge. I'll explain more about how I actually give grades based on your scores. What do you get on your quizzes and your tests are scores. If you get a 70 on your first quiz, that's a pretty good score, to be honest with you. Then I would be thinking to myself, well, what adjustments can I make? Whether it's time budget or a study strategy or whatever, that I can make maybe a 75 next time or an 80. And if you're like me, you're going to go up and down with those quizzes, but don't think of a 70 as a C. For all you know, the 70 might turn out to be a B or an A. Or so I'll be letting you know how I do the grade curving for y'all. So the point is just learn, show that you're learning, and the grade should fall into place. So if you do have now so that's where you go for your tests and quizzes. When it's time for an exam, there's going to be a folder for lecture and a folder for lab exams. There's only 2 lab exams. There's one at midterm, and then there's one at the end. And so you want to make sure you're studying that material all the time so that it's fresh and ready to go when the lab exams come. For the lecture exams, they're going to be after so many units. There's 5 scheduled, and then a final exam. For that, and they'll be posted in here. Right now there's no exams posted in there, but when the time comes, eventually those will appear there. And there's a little flexibility when you can test them, but if lecture exam 1 comes after the first week, and it will, by Monday they'll be your first lecture exam. And then on that week we start covering a new unit of information, and you haven't taken lecture exam 1, that's piled up on you, and now you have a bunch of new material in which you're already starting to take quizzes over. So you want to make sure you're on top of the material, studying it and taking those quizzes and tests timely. And if you ever fall behind, let me know. Reach out to me. We'll see how we can figure out how to get things back on track for you. You could always ask me questions online, but I would love to see students asking questions that everybody else who may have the same questions do. What I will do is participate with you guys on this. So what you would do, if you have, let's say you have this question over a concept, you can come here to this forum. This is a forum here. It says, need help with course material, post your questions here. And this is the same in both classes. You can create a thread. Okay, so give it a little subject title, a question on cladograms or whatever the concept you're going to be covering, right? And then you can type your question here and then submit it, and then I'll see it eventually, and your classmates will see it, and then you all can be replying to each other in the forum, and I'll go in there and reply as well. Or you can just ask me a question through Remind, but I think this would be a better place because chances are someone else is going to have a same question you do. Usually have a question because it's something that everybody might have a question over. So it's my intention to interact with you in that way to help support the learning that I would like to see. Now for office hours, you would just click here, and it's going to be the same in both. And the office hours are always going to be open, but I'm not going to be checking office hours unless it's my office hour. If you need to get a hold of me outside of office hours and you want to meet at some other time, send me a message on Remind, and then give me a proposed time where we can meet, and then we can meet in the office hour. I'll just make sure I log in at that time, and we can meet and chat directly in there with video and mic and everything else. So that would be this way. If you haven't used Collaborate before, it's a similar thing. And right now it's telling me that you can't get in there yet because it's not set to start till 7 a.m. tomorrow. But let me show you another way. So when it comes to the virtual classes, if you want to join them, make sure you look at the schedule. It's on the syllabus. And this is the same for both courses. You're going to click on Collaborate there. And it'll take you to the session, to this page here. And all you do is click here on there. And then go and click to where it says Join the course. Okay. And I'm showing you for section VO2, but it would be the same for section V60. Now down here on the bottom is where you can turn on your mic so you can be heard. And your camera if you want to be seen, and then if you want to raise your hand and be acknowledged, let's say a bunch of people are attending the virtual lab or the virtual lecture session that I'm going to be having, you raise your hand and then you might be able to see it, or just speak up. Just I have a question, Mr. Zamora, or whatever, and then I'd like to see some discussion as well. Now over here, you can actually share things as well. So if you have if you want to write something, you can start a whiteboard here, and then you can go and write on there. Pick a color, and you can write. It's kind of hard to write with a mouse though. If you have a touchpad, it'll be easier. You can also share applications. So if you want to share your entire screen, you can click here and then it'll share your screen so you can show me something you're doing on the computer or discussion. And that's how I'll be sharing my material. Now, if I'm already sharing something, I'll have to stop sharing for you to be able to share. So you would click here. You can do a Windows application, a Chrome tab. I tend to just share the entire screen. When I do that, it's hard for me to see if you raise your hand, so you'd have to speak up. And so then from there, then you would click share, and then it would allow me to see what you're doing. For the most part, if I'm explaining something, I'll be sharing at that time. So that's where you would go for the virtual classes, for the virtual lab and lectures. So you want to make sure you keep up, watch that schedule, and try to attend if you can. And I'm going to make an effort to record those sessions. Because if nobody shows up, I'm still going to go over some topic, or try to anyway. Everything's going to be covered through the videos, but I'll try to help out in that way. Now, if you're going to exit the session, you come up here, and then down here it says leave the session. Then it'll ask you if you want to rate it. You don't have to rate it. You can just skip that, and then just close the tab. So that's for the class sessions. For the office hours is different. The office hours, you'd click there. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this video, and I'm going to post it in that first folder there for you guys with all this explanation. I think that's all the basics for navigating through the course. Yeah, so you know where to get your assignments. You know where your tests and quizzes are going to be posted. You want to make sure you keep up if you're Section VO2 every day. Make sure you're covering all that material. It's 2 hours of lab and lecture material, roughly. Sometimes that's less, really. I know I was looking at one of the days for Section VO2, and I think I only had like almost just over 50 minutes of lecture material on that specific day. Another day it might be an hour and 30 minutes or so in chunks for each section. And then the lab there's gonna be time needs to be spent doing that stuff. So this is it. That's how you get through all this course material. And then if you have any questions, you can just send me a message through Remind. So make sure you sign up for Remind if you haven't already done that. So I hope this helps you get through. I know it was a little bit of a long explanation, but I'll try to put a menu down at the bottom so you can get to the different things we talked about today. So just like that other video I showed, little menu on there, you can forward to any of the spots in the video if there's something specific you want help with, or just ask. So hope to see you guys in class, or at least get involved in discussions with you guys. So I'll see you during the week through lectures and labs. Take care for now.